Hey there, all things MSP crew. We are here with another vendor update. I have an exciting one today because we have a new vendor for us. They're not new to the space. You guys will all recognize the name, but they're new to all things MSP. And of course, we love to have those vendor updates for all of, the people in the space. This is why we do what we do, because we want to bring all of the options to the MSPs in our audience. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce Mike Estep from Blackpoint Cyber. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Eric. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. If it wasn't for the rain outside, I'd be doing amazing.
Well, we appreciate you having us, and we love being part of the MSP community and excited, I guess, to be the first one from Blackpoint Cyber to present on your podcast.
Yeah. And, Blackpoint Cyber, no stranger to the space, obviously. You guys have been providing services, in terms of managed cyber for quite a while, since cyber's been a real thing. And a lot of MSPs figured out that they can't go it alone on cyber. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I think is important around Blackpoint, is that you guys are a true partner with the MSP. You're not just selling them a product and saying, here you go. But before we get into all of that, because I think that's interesting, and I think the way you guys look at that partnership is unique, I also want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and kind of a little bit of your background.
Okay. Well, as I tell the Blackpoint story, probably a little bit different than most, in that I come out of the MSP community. I had a brand here in Atlanta, Georgia, that's 50 years old this year. I still have one son that works for that brand. I love the MSP space. I mean, once again, I predate the MSP space. We didn't call ourselves MSPs in the late 80s, early 90s and such.
I remember.
Yeah, I mean, but we've always been about taking care of our clients and really focused on what I will call service delivery. We grew a brand in Atlanta to be very successful. Then we formed a holding company with two friends of mine, and we would buy a number of MSPs. In 2021, I elected to, co-found an organization called Blue Alliance, and then we would go on a run with it. And then in December of 23, basically decided to transact. And kind of the backstory for me is we were a large, once again, we were a large Blackpoint partner. We were partners with once again, I look at all vendors differently, in that I see everybody who really supports the MSP community as trying to do the right thing, trying to help take care of partners. So we were great partners with many people. And so I got to know almost everybody in the industry. John Murchison, who was the CEO at that time, now our executive chair, was like, "You can't retire." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can." He's like, "Would you think about coming to Blackpoint and helping us fix all things that are MSP driven?" I said, "Well, that sounds like a fun thing to do." And, this December will be 2 years, and excited for the accomplishments we've had in the last 24 months. Probably more excited for what you're going to see us really start to strive for these next 24 months. So that's kind of my background. I'm fortunate to have, a business that, had all my kids work in it. And, really, we had customers. I joked with somebody at one point in time, we went through a period over probably 12 or 13 years where we lost one customer in 11 years, and they became friends. That, it's the MSP space. I look at and yes. I try to change my wording when you talk to all these people now who talk about the MSP space, since we're no longer this hidden industry. I mean, it's SMB. I mean, SMBs are very relationship driven. They're very, they participate with each other. People become friends. It's not just a transaction. So, that's kind of my backstory, and excited to be helping Blackpoint with all things MSP.
Yeah. And you're exactly right about the community. And it's so great to see certain vendors who get it, because there are a lot of vendors who don't, right? That this portion of the industry, because of its relationship, exactly like you said, to SMB, relies much more on relationship than it does transaction. And those of us who grew up kind of in the VAR era, right, running break fix shops, whatever, building websites for people, doing all things technology, for people when it was a new thing,
Right.
right? When computers were not a requirement on every desk yet.
Showing
You
your
know,
age, Eric. Be careful.
well, you and I are not far off in terms of when we started our not MSPs,
Right.
right? So I can relate to that, and having been here through the evolution, seeing certain vendors not get the relational side of it is tough because they just don't listen sometimes. And I'm very interested in because your title is Chief Client Officer, and I imagine that especially because Blackpoint is much more a service than it is a product, that the partner experience is very important. So, what was kind of the tipping point that made you decide that, yes, this is something that I want to come over to Blackpoint Cyber and do because I'm passionate about it?
Well, Eric, what I would share is, and once again, we were joking about this before we started, and that, I kind of came from a world of thinking in our business, VAR, reseller, MSP, whatever you wanted to call us, we had all these very unique problems. And when I came to the vendor side, I learned, damn, they have the same unique problems. And, it still starts with service delivery. So when I joined John, the goal was, once again, as I was on this process of my wife was saying, slow down a little bit. So I came over as a vice president of communities just to try to help build community. And then basically what happened was I got involved in what they called customer support that I rebranded to client success. We had technical support, we had marketing, all of these things. And I kept basically spending my time and what I still do today, trying to help all of the wonderful people at Blackpoint to understand what, Goggin, our new CEO, in our first few meetings, he's like, listen, I need you to teach me the love language of MSPs. What's important? And it's truly that. It's understanding that, you got to be listening. So it's not just, we spend a lot of time at Blackpoint talking about security and talking about protection and all of these things, but it's a bigger story in that how do you integrate with all the tools that you currently use in your MSP? How do you handle billing? I mean, I like to, John always used to like to talk about the engineering tax that MSPs had trying to build a SOC. And I'd be like, yeah, we have that. But oh, by the way, all this operational tax around invoicing, getting invoices from you, billing. And he's like, well, we didn't see that as this huge problem. So all of a sudden I started kind of, being asked to help solve this and give advice on that. So this chief client officer role was kind of born. And once again, I'll date myself. There was a fine gentleman in the industry. I think his actual title was chief customer officer. I like the word client because to me, clients are relationships, customers are buyers. And this is a thing, but there was we were an early user of a small little company called ConnectWise before it had all these people. And, Craig Fulton was the first, chief customer officer that I really got to engage with and meet. And he cared as, in fact, I would argue he cared more about the customer, more about all of us and than necessarily than ConnectWise. And that's probably not 100% true. And I like to paint the same picture. My goal is to listen to our MSP partners, listening to what's going on in the industry and bring it back to Blackpoint and say, okay, we got to solve this. So I love the role. I spend a lot of time trying to talk and meet to people. Right now I probably travel between events and seeing partners almost 40 weeks a year. So it's a little bit different versus being an MSP owner where I was in our office here in Atlanta. But I love our industry. I love our people. We learned, you're a former owner, we learned that if we all learn to help each other, we'll all just go much further. Quite truthfully, I'm trying to teach the vendors that too right now. And that, those vendors who truly get community and truly get that we can all get to where we want to be together and not have to be these aggressive competitors with each other, I think is one of the things as we mature, you're going to see all the vendors do to try to do better.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's interesting you brought up the billing piece because that is a unique piece for the MSP industry because we are B2B, but in that situation, because most of them are billing monthly and they're billing monthly, the vendor is billing them monthly, they're billing their clients monthly. And because of that, if you don't streamline that billing for the MSP, the friction created there will make them look for an inferior vendor that does better billing. And sometimes it's hard to get people to understand that. So, but before we go much further into the experience part of it, I do want to talk a little bit about, what Blackpoint does so that people who aren't familiar kind of have an idea of what you guys do and how you do it.
Okay. Well, once again, coming back from my previous experience and trying to share with everybody out there, I can walk through some of the wonderful technical terms. I happen to be an engineer, understand the technical game and one of those things. But you said it earlier in that as an MSP owner, I was built and geared to build everything myself. If we couldn't do it ourselves, I felt like we weren't doing our job. With security, it became this unique challenge in that it never stopped. Okay. And by the way, I also think that, MSPs today deserve so much more than they probably charge, because post COVID, all of our organizations had to become 7x24, because when somebody goes to their kid's soccer game at 2 p.m. and is out from 2 to 5, now they're going to work from 8 to 11 and expect to talk to the IT support team just like they were at 2 to 5. But I was looking, and what I still today, when people ask me, why did you pick Blackpoint? I today wanted to know that at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, that someone, a person, was making a call. Okay. And once again, I love AI. I love automation. I get it all. But listen, I tell people all the time, when you isolate a CEO's machine at 2 a.m, whether you're right to isolate it or wrong to isolate it, you're still getting hollered at. And I just felt better to say, hey, listen, a person looked at this, a person made a call, a person made a judgment. And by the way, a team. So for us, as an MSP leader, I was trying to satisfy that without getting my people out of bed every night, without waking people up with pager duty and things to that nature that were in our MSP. I wanted a true 7x24 partner. So what I tell people, Blackpoint first is, and this isn't fancy conversation. Blackpoint is a 7x24x365 SOC team that is running all of this very elite software that they've developed and own the patents against. But they were truly an extension of my team. They were making a call at 2 a.m. and saying, hey, listen, I've isolated this device. We built our own rule set that said if it was this level of problem, then you didn't need to wake up our team. If it was this level of problem, you were getting everybody out of bed. At our core, we're a managed detection and response, and the R being one of our differentiators in that we truly respond. As we talk about billing, getting tickets, getting alerts at 2 a.m, or even during the middle of the day now, we get so many, we're flooded. So Blackpoint is inserting high quality software and technology merged together with people to truly bring together, once again, we're a SaaS platform. It's got a lot of software, but most things MSP require a human to go, should we do, should we not do? So we specialize in that. So what I would tell anyone listening to this is Blackpoint's a company that can become an extension of your team that's truly focused on the same type of, excuse my French, crap that you're going to deal with from your clients, that we just know it and understand it. And that's what we do every day. And by the way, we've got a big announcement with our Compass One product, and there's a lot of product things coming as well, because one of the journeys we've went on is what can help MSPs be different in the industry. And I think one of the biggest changes since when you and I got in this business is many MSPs now it's still by definition small, medium business, but more MSPs are transacting with clients with 100, 200, 300, 400 users than ever. We call it commit, but being a company that can help MSPs now go from where they are to these bigger clients to drive revenue and help grow the business. Is that helpful outside of your coffin at the moment?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is, I can't think of a better way to explain what you guys do than the way you just did, because it really, your differentiator is the R, it's the response, right? It's how they handled that and the partnership that's involved. I thought it was really interesting that you said when you were still an MSP and you were using Blackpoint, you were able to customize and create rules around what would wake up your team and what wouldn't. And I think that just kind of shows the detail level of the partnership that you guys are doing with your partners. Now, you mentioned that you've got some exciting things coming, and I know marketing people usually don't like you talking about the things that are coming, so we won't touch those unless you know there are things you can talk about. But you also said before we started recording, that there were lots of interesting things you had done in the last 12 to 24 months. You mind taking us through a couple of those?
Sure. So, well, and some of this everybody's somewhat familiar with. So, in earlier this year, we announced our Compass One product, which, one of the things I credit John and all of our leadership for is we've brought to Blackpoint these experts in individual categories. So, we bring on. We already had John, who has his NSA background, Javier, who was at Tenable when they were getting rolling, and Will Santiago, who runs our SOC. We also added Manoj, who's our chief technology and product officer, who also came from Tenable. And we started working on developing, the question that they kept asking was, how do we bring value when somebody's not fighting a breach or fighting, an attack? And I'm like, well, the first thing we need to do is help people with selling their value of everything they do every day. So we started building Compass One with the idea of building, what we affectionately call a posture score, SPR for short. And the idea being that it allowed you to take your clients on a journey as an MSP owner to show them many things. So we've been working on adding vulnerability management, posture management, all into the product. In a perfect world, we probably just would have said it was called Blackpoint before, and now it's just Blackpoint Compass One. It's not something new. It's just the next evolution of it. I am a firm believer that compliance and security are finally coming together. We've been around both long enough to know it was hard to sell security in the beginning, and now people kind of understand they have to buy it. I think the same thing has happened with compliance over the last 12 months, and I think over the next 24 months. So we've heavily invested in bringing the next version of our SIM product to life. It's running today. Very excited. Actually was helping a client on board with it this morning, and it'll just continue to revolutionize as we go forward. And we start talking about compliance and security. We're using this term unified security posture. So you really can't have compliance without security, and you can't have security without compliance. More because people buy compliance, they don't buy security easy. So all of those things, kind of have been in the evolution. And then the other thing we really focused on earlier this year, our product was seen, to be quite truthful, we were seen as a premium product. We do all these things. We were more expensive than our competitors. So we introduced an essentials version that allowed, once again, MSPs, engineers have to learn, okay, you can only have so many tools. You can only have so many tool vendors. That there is a tax to all of that, keeping people trained. So we wanted to make sure that people who wanted to use Blackpoint could use it when they needed our managed application control product or our vulnerability management product or what Compass One standard. But at the same time, we wanted to have an entry-level version that we called Essentials for both our cloud platform and device platform. So all of that's in full swing. We're preparing now for upcoming events. I'm actually kind of happy August is quiet for the event schedule minus some peer group stuff, but in September, we're going to be out on the road a bunch and, kind of sharing. We're excited for, we're looking at, that those first few weeks of October to be a very big time for Blackpoint Cyber.
Yeah, the travel schedule has died down a little bit for this month, something that I'm grateful of as well. Are you, speaking of events, are you going to be at Channel Pro in your backyard?
So I'm not ever 100% sure where I'm going to be, Eric. Once again, I joke with people all the time. When coming to Blackpoint, there were lots of things I had on the MSP side. We had lots of engineers, lots of service coordinators. We worried about service delivery. It's a standing joke to everybody who can't see this. There's two very nice ladies on this call that don't have their pictures up to keep me track. I'm not 100% sure everywhere I'm going to be, but we're trying to do as many events as possible and, be visible as much as possible. I challenge all of the MSPs who are listening to this, communicate with the vendors. I mean, I think there are so many events today. I mean, you could literally almost go week to week to week to week to week.
Yeah.
And as a vendor, I'm sitting there, different business problem when I was running an MSP, trying to figure out where do you go? Who do you send? How do you disrupt all these lives that are living on airplanes? So it's helpful when it's in my backyard. But being honest with everybody, I'm living a week at a time. I know I'm at home this week. I don't know where I'm at next week quite yet. I'm sure my wife does, but that's about it.
They usually do. Okay, so if somebody wants to find out more about Blackpoint Cyber, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Well, as always, blackpointcyber.com is the website. I'm active, I think most MSPs are, these days they're active on LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn. It's M as in Michael Estep. So, been around LinkedIn since the beginning of time. So I get one of the things that's still my name that they can find me. Blackpoint Cyber has its own page, but I would say website, and then ultimately just find us on LinkedIn. I try to all the MSPs. I'm trying very hard to be visible on Reddit. I grew up in a world of not using that. I was fortunate to have kids in the business who did. So they're having to teach dad some old tricks of using Reddit and Discord and things to that nature. So we're getting more and more active there every day. But I would say website and LinkedIn first and foremost.
Yeah, and I completely understand the Reddit and Discord thing.
Yep. It's isn't it, Eric, isn't it? I mean, it's just different. I mean, it's different.
Yes.
And I joke with everybody all the time. I'm still, when my phone bleeps at 2 a.m, I still look. And Reddit and Discord don't stop. And I'm not saying LinkedIn does, but it just doesn't beep as much. So, it's kind of interesting to figure out, I keep challenging everybody. There's got to be a better communication method for all of us that, we all have to figure out.
Yep, exactly. Well, Mike, it was so great to have you on today and get to hear more about Blackpoint Cyber. And I hope that you guys, find some more all things MSP audience members to get engaged with. And I do certainly appreciate you guys being a part of the community.
Well, Eric, thank you for having us. And as always, we love everything you guys are doing for the community and everything that all of the MSPs out there. Once again, I constantly give the same pitch. We're all on the same team these days. This is not, yeah, we all may have businesses that have certain, customer conflicts and things to that nature, but ultimately we're on the same team with the same mission. Let's just go win and keep everybody safe from a cyber standpoint, from an IT MSP standpoint, help clients make great decisions and run great businesses. And, we'll all win. And in the end, it'll be a wonderful world.
I couldn't have said it better. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric.